Chapter 1. Ada's reality was simple and sweet, grounded in the rhythms of the small compound they called home, where every morning began with the smell of her mother's fried dough and every evening ended with her mother counting the few dollars she made at the market. Puff puff, small, golden brown balls of dough, fried crisp on the outside and soft on the inside. Ada's mother had earned herself a reputation. Women came from as far as the neighboring towns to learn her secret, though they never could. She knew that her mother's success lay not in the ingredients, but in the love with which she mixed them, in the patience she gave the dough tourists, and in the pride she took in each ball that left her hands. The young child awoke that morning in the small, one-room house they shared. She could hear the soft thud of her mother's hands against the door. It was a sound that had become the soundtrack of her life. The kitchen, small, dim, and crowded with pots, bowls, and pans, was a place of pleasure, where simple flour and yeast transformed into golden, mouth-watering spheres that could bring both joy and comfort to anyone who tasted them. As a baby she would follow her mother Nkechi to the bustling marketplace where women in bright fabrics hawked everything from yams to palm oil to fresh vegetables. Lekki Market was a cacophony of voices, battering, laughing, gossiping, and Ada loved it. She loved the food cooked on open fires, the way her mother's voice, calm and reassuring, could be heard above the noise, greeting her regular customers with warmth and ease. Despite feeling a sense of community, she always felt something missing, something she couldn't fully explain. The young girl had no memories of her father. She knew his name was Diz, but that was all. According to her mother, he had disappeared when she was only 9 months old. No one knew what had happened to him. Some claimed he had been taken by gang members, while others whispered that he had fled to another city in search of a better life. No matter what anyone said, Mama never spoke badly of him. Ada had learned early that the subject of her father was a delicate one. Whenever she asked, her mother would simply smile sadly and say, "Your father is with the ancestors now. He is part of the world you cannot see, my daughter." Ada's world, after all, was a world of women. It was her mother who had raised her, who had taught her everything she knew, from pounding yam to making fufu, to shopping for dinner. She knew the touch of her mother's hand, the warmth of her embrace, the strength in her voice when she sang to her, but the image of a man, her father, remained a distant shadow in her life. She was a curious girl, intelligent and quick to learn. She loved school, and the teachers adored her, impressed by how eager she was to soak up every piece of knowledge they offered. Whenever the other children talked about their fathers, strong men who took them on holidays or carried them on their shoulders after school, she felt the emptiness, longing for the strength of a father's presence and the security of knowing both parents were there to watch over her. One afternoon, as they sat together in the small yard behind their house, she asked again, "Mama, where is Papa?" Nkechi set her hand on her head. "I don't know, my child," she said softly. "But your Papa loved you. He loved you even before you were born. Then why did he leave us?" Her mother's face grew distant, and she looked away, her eyes dark with something she couldn't read. "Sometimes, life is like that. Sometimes, things happen that we cannot explain. But we are here, and we are strong. Do you understand?" The confused child nodded, though the answer still didn't feel complete. There were pieces of the puzzle missing, pieces that perhaps she would never find. Life went on like this for several years, Ada attending school, Mama making her puff-puff, and the two of them living peacefully in their small house. But when she turned 9, everything changed. It was one of those rare days when the market seemed quieter than usual, and Mama had come home earlier than expected. She was smiling, a smile Ada had not seen in a long time, as she approached their house. "I have something to tell you, my daughter," she said, her voice light with excitement. "I got a real job." Ada's eyes widened. Her mother had never spoken of a job before, at least not like this. Who gave you a job, Mama? One of our regular customers, a woman named Mrs. Alma Akene, had offered her a position as the head chef at her family's house. Mrs. Akene was a wealthy woman who lived on Victoria Island. She frequented the markets monthly and often expressed her admiration for Nkechi's hard work and skill, so when her old cook had fallen ill, she had decided to hire her on the spot. The job offer came with a small servant's quarters on the Akene's property, and a wage that would be more than 10 times what she made selling puff-puff. Mama took the offer. Ada could see the relief in her mother's eyes, the way her shoulders seemed to relax as the weight of her endless labor lifted, even if only for a little while. We are going to live in a big house. There will be more food, more space, and I will be able to save money. We can even afford to send you to a better school. Ada was stunned. Let's start packing, Mother declared. Ada and her mother moved through the small, dimly lit flat, each step a reminder of the life they were about to leave behind. The cracked walls, the peeling paint, the faint smell of dampness that lingered in her furniture, everything about it spoke of struggle, of survival. But today, as they packed their belongings into old boxes and warm bags, there was a feeling of finally leaving the past behind. Ada folded clothes while her mother was in the other room, packing up the kitchen, the pots, pans, and chipped plates they'd used for years. She walked quietly, humming a song of Thanksgiving. The young girl glanced over at her mother, who was carefully wrapping the last of the silverware. Victoria Island, can you believe it? Her mother had repeated 100 times over the past few weeks, as if the mere mention of the name could make their dream feel more real. It's a new beginning. A fresh start. Ada wanted to believe her. She wanted to feel the excitement and anticipation her mother radiated, but how could she? The thought of moving to another neighborhood, a place with new opportunities, felt distant. The truth was, she wasn't sure she was ready to leave everything behind. She wasn't sure how to say goodbye to the market and everyone they knew. The sound of the street outside drifted in through the cracked window. Their neighborhood was alive with noise, vendors shouting, children playing, and the occasional honk of a car in the traffic jam. Her eyes lingered on the bustling street for a moment longer before she turned away. It was also familiar, but she knew this was their last day here. Her mother entered the room with a cardboard box in her hand. I think that's everything, she said, glancing around at the room they had once called home. She looked up at Ada with a hopeful smile. It's not much, but we've got everything we need. Her daughter nodded, but she couldn't quite bring herself to smile. She stood up, stretching her tired muscles, and surveyed the room one last time. She could already feel the pull of the unknown, the pull of Victoria Island on Mama. Are you sure about this, Mama? She asked again. Is Victoria Island really going to be better? Her mother sighed, and she walked over to her daughter, brushing a braid from her face. You don't need to worry, Ada. We've struggled long enough. This move is for us both. We'll build a life there and things will be better.